Juan Carlos Hidalgo is a Latin American policy analyst for the Center for Global Liberty and Prosperity at the Cato Institute. And I asked him how the Peruvian administration is handling the corruption probe.
This is not an easy fight. Fighting corruption is a process that is going to involve many setbacks, particularly in a country that used to have weak institutions such as Peru. But the story here is that Peru, along with Brazil, are the countries in Latin America where there has been the strongest pushback against corruption, particularly corruption involving Odebrecht in all Latin America. Let's remember that Odebrecht was involved in 11 countries in the region. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes, kickbacks all over the region. And yet, the only two countries where we have seen major developments fighting this corruption have been Brazil and Peru. So I think that Peru deserves credit in the efforts that he has engaged so far.
So this is par for the course. I mean, we should not expect anything less. This is part of the process to get rid of corruption. What about the people that are protesting on the streets? Are their voices being heard? Are they just trying to make sure that the process stays on course? Indeed.
What happened here is that the Attorney General allegedly has ties to Keiko Fujimori, the leader of the opposition, probably the strongest politician in Peru, who is in jail right now under allegations that she received illegal campaign contributions from Odebrecht. Well, two prosecutors have been very independent-minded, very strong against Keiko Fujimori. The Attorney General fired him on New Year's Eve, and that triggered these protests. And now he has to backtrack. He had to reinstate these prosecutors. And so this is a positive development because it shows that Peruvians are fed up with corruption and are not going to tolerate these maneuvers to undermine investigations and undermine the prosecution of corrupt politicians.
You mentioned Keiko Fujimori. She is still behind bars, lost her most recent appeal. Her father also behind bars. Other high-level politicians within not just Peru, but other Latin American countries under investigation. Where does this all go?
Well, you see a kaleidoscope of developments all over the region. In some countries like Peru and Brazil, you have former presidents being jailed and prosecuted. Even in Peru, the case of a sitting president who had to resign because of these corruption allegations, whereas in other countries, nothing happens, like in Mexico or Venezuela or Panama. So I think that is a metric in order to assess the state of the rule of law in Latin American countries. And yes, we have to recognize that even in countries like Peru and Brazil, you're going to have setbacks. For example, the whole Odebrecht saga has also exposed a lot of corruption within the judiciary in Peru, corruption that wasn't related necessarily to the Odebrecht scandal. But this is positive, I think. Some people like to see the glass half empty. I think we should see the glass half full. People are complaining about corruption. Institutions are moving along in the fight against corruption and against corrupt politicians and businessmen.
What will it take to earn the trust of Peruvians?
Having figures like these prosecutors that are going after big politicians, big fish, like businessmen, I think that that's definitely a positive development. And you see that people are supporting these efforts. President Vizcarra is widely popular in Peru precisely because he's perceived as somebody that is not captured by special interests and that he's pushing for stronger institutions. Now, you have to be careful also because you cannot only base your policy on what the people demand. You know, sometimes you have to respect also the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary and so on. But I think that overall, these are positive developments, particularly in Peru.